because the common goal is to know Christ. It's not I'm hanging out with my buddies, whether it be all black, all white. It's hanging out with just men in general that love Christ and that want to have a better relationship with him, and then that we can all share in fellowship together.
Welcome to the Men's Alliance podcast. Men's Alliance is a growing movement of tribes across the nation that meet weekly for rugged outdoor workouts and a real-world devotion around a fire. If you want to be a part of what we're doing, join us at men'salliancetribe.com, where you can find a tribe near you or come to one of our Start the Fire weekends. So check us out at men'salliancetribe.com. Now stay tuned for this great podcast. Welcome to the Men's Alliance podcast. I'm Dave Mills, Goose.
I'm Dusty Parker, Shadow. What's going on?
And we're going to go around and introduce who else we got with us. We'll go this way.
Marcus White, Swag from Charlie Tribe.
Bunty Ramsey, Triple from Delta Tribe.
Corey Hentz, Flav from Delta Tribe.
All right. So we got five.
We're going to figure this out.
We got 5 guys in a small room, and we're going to try to make this work with 2 cameras. But I'm super excited to have you guys here. We've been talking about doing this podcast for months, right? We've been trying to plan this out for months. Anytime you're doing this many people for scheduling, it's going to be a challenge. We finally got all of our schedules. You guys are all very busy. Me and Shadow, we have nothing better to do. We've just been sitting here for months waiting on you guys. But this is awesome. So a little bit of the background on this topic and what our approach is today, right? So from my perspective, and we're all going to have very different ones, but from my perspective, creating Men's Alliance and as the director of Men's Alliance and posting tons of pictures of Men's Alliance on social media, right? I had never thought about the fact that we're so white. Men's Alliance is mostly white until we start really growing just this year. And it's like, I can't post a photo of a large tribe gathering, like a big all tribes or something. I will get a comment. Somebody will be like, there's like a whole bunch of white people around a fire.
Be a bald white guy.
Where's y'all's hoods?
Yeah.
Right. I've gotten these comments on Facebook. Where's y'all's hoods? And so I understand how that looks to people, but at the same time, it's frustrating to me because I'm like, I don't know what we can do about that. We are what we are. we're just doing this, right? But I think there's always just this undertone of race in our society, in our culture. If a group of guys does something and they're all white, that's a group of white guys, right? If a group of non-white guys is doing something, it's like, oh, there's a group of black guys or whatever, right? People just tag that color on. And it's very rare to be in a group that's split evenly, right?
Yeah,
that's rarely going to happen. So it's become this thing, right? It kind of started with me on social media and seeing all these posts and looking at our photos through that lens and thinking about it. But also just everything we've got going on in our world just outside of Men's Alliance, right? And then we go to a tribe meeting, and depending on your tribe, tribes can be pretty diverse. I know a lot of this just has to do with the area or the town that you're in too. And I know that our tribes in different states, you guys listening in, tribes in Texas and Oregon and Alaska and Canada, I have no idea what they look like or if they've got similar challenges or not. But, I just wanted to do a conversation, address it on a podcast, get you guys here because you're just people of color, right? You just got a different perspective than me. You're going to look at Men's Alliance different than me. You're going to look at our Facebook posts different than me. And I thought, what would be more fun than just do a podcast on racism, right? And that's such a big monster topic. We could go all over the place with it. But first of all, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for taking the time.
Thanks for the invite.
And so you guys know and our listeners know, like, we really have no script for this, right? There's no like, here's the questions we're going to go over. Here's what I want you to talk about. You know, like that didn't happen.
Yeah.
We're just like going to totally get some coffee in us and just start talking. So I'm just going to throw this out there. What's you guys' perspective? Let's start kind of Men's Alliance and then go kind of like culture, greater American culture in general. But what's you guys' perspective on race and Men's Alliance?
Who wants to speak
To
first?
start, I mean, I guess I can start. So when I first got to Men's Alliance, I wasn't thinking, about race or about, me being the only black person there or a person of color or whatever. It was just when I really first got there, I was searching for something to kind of distract my mind from the death of my mom. That was, a real hard time for me. And I was, searching for something to be a part of or, to kind of distract me from, a new normal. But then once I got there and actually spent a couple of, weeks there and decided that, I was going to continue to do it and like it. I actually, like the guys that were within the group and, speaking on the Lord and just something different, something that I wasn't, normally used to. I liked it. And then as I got more involved in with the group and then started looking and see, who actually where the members are, I went to one of my buddies that came with me, the closer, and I was just looking around and I was like, am I the only black guy that, that's the one that's here, So, I'm always aware of my surroundings. But, to be in something that's kind of new and knowing that not everybody comes every week, so you don't know truly who's on the roster and who's not.
Right.
But I was in there, pretty good. It was a few months, and then noticed that it was me. It was Tomcat, Alex, his nephew Flash. Yeah. And I believe at the time that was it.
I think that was it.
And that was it. So it was just us. But like I'm used to it, being a minority. It's not something that was gonna distract me or neglect. I'm using the wrong word. Wasn't gonna make me not come.
Right.
Whatever that was. Deter me from coming. Just because I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't because of that.
Yeah.
I felt, like I said, I was searching for something and I felt something bigger than myself and then that I should stay here and to be, I really felt like the Lord brought me there to be a part of something bigger than myself. And, at the time it was, just a handful of tribes at the time. I think maybe that was the only one. And now we've, I was just looking outside of the door here and there's 21 new tribes just this year.
Right.
So, I mean, it's growing like wildfire. Whether black, white, Asian, brown, whatever, it's something that we can all get around because the common goal is to know Christ. It's not I'm hanging out with my buddies, whether it be all black, all white. It's I'm hanging out with just men in general that love Christ and that want to have a better relationship with him, and then that we can all share and fellowship together. Would I like to see more, people of color? Absolutely. But at the same time, the message here is brotherhood. It's not, we're not counting how many, black faces, how many white faces there are within each tribe. So as we get the word out, as we get, people to understand like what the tribe and mission is all about, I feel everybody would be interested in it, once they hear it and once they, learn from it. Now, it doesn't hurt to have, a representation, where people would feel comfortable to come and join the tribe. But, once you get in the tribe, I feel like most people would see what we're about. We're not race baiting or anything like that. It's, you figure you're going to feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Well, that's so good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flav, you were nodding pretty hard.
That's exactly what I feel.
Right.
Right. And that's cool to hear you echo that. It's that, we're focusing on different things that we have in common, right? We want to be better husbands, better fathers, better Christian men.
Right.
And
it's the focus, you go in there, like I said, with open mind. You go in there willing and ready to learn about something that you didn't know. It's not going in there say, oh man, I'm not going to vibe with these people because they don't look like me. They all white or vice versa. It could, they could be all black. It just depends. Or people of color. It just doesn't matter. You go in there with an open mind, and you'll be okay. You'll understand like what the message is, and what it is to be a part of something.
for sure.
Yeah, I think Swag, you mentioned a lot of really good points. I think like from my experience, just being in my later 30s, like I just grew up like with a diverse group of people. So to me, it's kind of like a normal type of thing, I would say. And like for me, I know when I went to the website initially, I was like, this is not for me at all. Because
Oh, really?
I am not an exercise person. So that was like more of a, thing like this ain't for me. But in a couple of small groups that I lead, like people recommended, like in my neighborhood, like for example, Thor, like I felt like I was kind of like harassed, like you need to check this out. And then once I got in, I was like, okay, this is really cool. I'm starting like in the fall. It's getting a little bit later and it's darker around 7 p.m. so people can't see me anyway. So they wouldn't matter what I can do. So it's my adjustment period or whatever to this. And I just really enjoyed it because to Swag's point, like the emphasis on Jesus and just having people from different cultures or whatever, different ages, different walk in their spirituality with Jesus. Like, I think that was like the biggest thing for me. So I think with my experience, I'm like, no really major issues or anything like that. But I can see how people might have concerns if they are a minority, especially if they're like a millennial or Generation Z, because even when they're looking for churches, especially like for us, when we moved from Richmond City to the suburbs where we're at now, the population definitely is a little bit different. Like just looking at churches, yes, it's great to go and check out, but you're going to go to the social media pages. You're going to go to like, the websites to kind of form an idea. And a website might not be racist within itself, but sometimes those perceptions can become a reality, and that can like separate, some people. But I will say Men's Alliance, I feel like it's no really any issues with that. Like for me, and I know Triple and others as well, like we went through the ranks. We love it. I think it's a great opportunity to, come into a space and have a conversation with people. And I feel like there's nothing you can necessarily really do. It's just to be aware of it. And I consider myself a disruptor, and I always just try to disrupt a little bit. I think Jesus did that in many different examples. I think the Bible really teaches us that heaven is going to be a nation of all different types of people. So that's always my vision. I don't think there should ever be like a structure to like focus on diversity or anything like that. But I think it can definitely be a top down and bottom up approach. And it's so many different things that can happen in that space. So I love Men's Alliance. I think Jesus is really important. The apologetic piece is just, I think that's something that everybody can capture. Like we always talk about, like we had this experience and now we're Christians, but can you really defend your faith? Like, what do you really know about the gospel? What are you going to tell about other people? And I think that thing right there is something Men's Alliance has really impacted me in a really great way. And I think that's something everybody can really embrace. So that's the primary concern right there. I think the diversity thing, I personally think it's really important, but it's probably not like the biggest thing on the totem pole.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Man, I love that. You just got me fired up, man.
Okay,
I'm
there
ready
you
to
go.
go right now.
Yeah.
Ready to go to Men's Alliance.
Well, it's interesting hearing you guys speak on that a little bit, because my perspective, I've been going to church, invited to Men's Alliance for over a year. My perspective was I can't hang with that workout either. So I stopped. I was like, no, I can't do it. Ranger was consistent in inviting me. And from the first tribe meeting, it always felt welcoming. It wasn't oh, you're this race, or you're Asian, you're Indian, or you're black. It wasn't anything like that. It was, hey, God created you as a man, so let's hang out as men. It's very binary. And I think, you go back to scripture, and God never says, I created black people, I created Asians. That's a result of, micro evolution, genetics evolving over time. But he created us as men.
Men. Yeah.
And that's the mission of Men's Alliance. And
Yeah.
that's what I love. Some of my story, I kind of have the opposite experience of you guys.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of my race, it was always a positive thing. I was always looked on like, oh, you're studious, you're smart, you're you're Indian, so you must be able to do all
you
these
do it
things.
all.
Yeah. People forget, like, India is like 1 billion people.
Right.
So the people that come over here are like the cream of the crop at the end of the day. We got, degenerates in our country as well from that standpoint.
Oh, you do?
So it's always interesting because
You are
growing
the
up,
cream of the crop.
yes,
That's right.
but it's interesting growing up, my family always gravitated to other Indians.
Mhm.
Like they would always, isolate themselves in a sense from that culture and want to be part of that culture and want to create a version of that here. And I was always look at it being, I hate that, because I feel like there's no diversity. There's no, like, all right, first, it's just every time those people get together, they just speak in that language of Hindi or, the off dialect of whatever your region that you're from. And I would always be like, I have no idea what's going on.
Mm.
I kind of assimilated into this culture. So I would always gravitate to, other people. Growing up in a high school, there's only one other Indian kid. It was like my best friends were either white or black. There's a country boys or, athletes or whatever. Like it was just seemed normal to me. It never was he's black, he's white. So it's kind of interesting to hear you guys, speak on it, because I have a completely different perspective.
I think that's really interesting what you mentioned, Triple, too. And I'm not going to go in a tangent with it, but I think it's very interesting as we go through like different generations, especially being black people too. Like you deal with, you talked about in India, like it's a 1 billion, whatever amount of people. But in America, like black people in particular, like we're not all in the same group politically. Like it's a little bit different, and social economically a little bit different. So I grew up, you could say like, around a bunch of different people. Both of my parents were teachers, deacon and deaconess in the church, coaches. So it was a very, very unique situation. But I felt like I came from a different space. I could deal with people that were quote unquote ghetto, ratchet, in the middle class, upper class. But what I'm starting to see now is like in our community too, it's still kind of divided, it's split or whatever, but you're seeing a lot of more black people that are moving up. And it's just a different dynamic. It's not so much the race. It's like, I don't know, like it's the class, it's the social economic system.
Absolutely.
It's all that stuff. So you can see that in the last, not to get into politics, but you can see that in the last political like race. Like we're all not just one monolith. It's like completely unique. And I know Swag, myself, I believe Triple too, we're kind of unique too, because we've been or are in interracial marriages. So I think that makes it really unique too, especially having biracial kids. It's a whole different element. It's another thing that comes to that. And like, you think about George Floyd and all this type of stuff. Like, I think from my perspective, I don't necessarily feel like certain people are racist or whatever like that, but everybody's in their own little bubble. And I think that's kind of where the problem is at a little bit too. Like, it's a great opportunity to get out of that bubble and pop it and understand each group have different situations and they have their different life experiences. They come from like different churches, or maybe they didn't come from that background, whether it's a rural church that was predominantly like one culture, ethnic group, music, whatever, city or whatever. Like it's so many different experiences. And like, I find myself have to explain a lot of that stuff a lot of times, just because, you know, for me, it's like, I personally feel like once we moved in this area, it was like, my wife was like, I don't want to go to all black church. And I was like, well, I don't want to be the only chocolate drop in one church too. So we're going to have to figure this out. At the end of the day, for us, what was really important was like, we wanted our kids to be plugged into the church, that at least the youth ministry was going to represent like what we thought was diverse for the community. And then the message of Jesus was really strong.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we came around with that. So it's never going to be perfect. We had a conversation with multiple leaders of different churches in the area, and we felt comfortable with that. So to us, it's very important. We understand the perception. I feel like in every culture, it's those little undercurrents or whatever, whether it's true or not. That's a whole different question. Even like we started a little bit late too, and I joked with Bunty, like, or Triple, like, are we on Indian people time? Or are we on colored people time? That's something.
That was a good
That's
text
something
thread.
like, you know, that's
Right.
something like we're all
Right on time.
thinking about. And we joke all the time.
Yeah.
You know, whatever. It's kind of ingrained in culture and the media and stuff like that. So that's all I'm gonna say about that. So
You know, when I was in the military, for those of you that haven't been in the military, it's very, very extremely rigid and structured between officer and enlisted, right? So if you're an officer, you are taught from day one, you are not supposed to like go out and have a beer with enlisted. That is a huge foul, right? You hang out with officers, and enlisted hang out with enlisted. And so that's like where the line is drawn in the military in all branches. So, I mean, there's like ethical scenarios that would come into play, right? Like don't play cards with people that you're their boss. You don't want them to have to owe you money and stuff like that. Don't play darts. Don't let them buy you a beer, right? If you're writing their performance report. So it's that kind of a mentality. But I noticed on my very first deployment that in the chow hall, and I'm very curious to hear your take from your military experience, Chow. My first deployment in that chow hall, it did not matter who was officer or enlisted. People sat with race. And I noticed, like, because I have a lot of fellow officers who are black. And, like, they're my buddies. We fly together. We spend time in the cockpit together. But when we went in the chow hall, they went and sat with other black people. It did not matter if they knew them. It did not matter if they were enlisted. It was like they were going to go sit together, you know? And I'm just stating that as a fact. It just is what it is. And I can see that. I can understand that, right? They probably have a lot in common. They just want to talk. They just want to hang. But that just shows, you know, like that is that pull. That's like that gravitational pull, right? I think we've got something in us that wants to be with people that look like us. Right. Maybe it's just birds of a feather type thing. But the reason I bring up that story was because currently, for whatever reason, maybe it's just because there's not that many people of color, but currently I don't see that happening at Men's Alliance, right? Right now it's just like everybody's just hangs with everybody, right? And I understand that that's a natural human tendency, but I still hope that Men's Alliance can continue to grow and not be that. To me, like that would be like a measure of we're doing something right if we don't start to look like the chow hall on a deployment.
Yeah, my experience with that, in the chow hall, it was so much. It wasn't a race thing. You sat with who you were doing the same job with. So it like, and in my specific job, which was the infantry and, you know, fast teams and all that, it was a predominantly white MOS, but sprinkled in with some black guys. And, but that never came. I always thought that might come up. Like, but it, like, at least in my experience in the Marines and in the infantry, when you're fighting for the guy to the right and left of you, it's like you didn't care what color he was. That issue never came up one time. I can
Yeah,
remember.
and
As
you know,
far as
it was
age.
never it was never coming from a bad place.
No,
The Air
right.
Force. It was just naturally where
Yeah.
people just went and said. But yeah, it had nothing to do with MOS.
Really.
It was like,
For us, because that's what in the infantry,
yeah,
it's a whole. You're the rest of the military doesn't exist.
I do think that the
Like, they
Marine Corps
keep
does
us-
an incredible job.
They keep us.
They do an
separate from
incredible
everybody
job.
else, probably for good reason.
You know, I've heard Marine drill instructors say there's no white or black in the Marine Corps. There's just different shades of green.
Yeah.
You're light green or you're dark green. We're all green. I love that.
I think they do have a good handle on that.
Yeah.
Because no one gets treated any better than anybody else. We all get treated like crap. So,
So, well, you know what? Before I go to this next question, let's take a quick commercial break. We'll do a quick commercial break. We'll come back, keep talking race.
hey, this is Shadow. Do you want to support your tribe or show off how awesome Men's Alliance is? Or maybe both? I would say the best two ways that you can show how impactful your tribe has been in your life or how awesome you think the podcast is by number one, supporting Men's Alliance on a monthly basis. Even if it's just 10 or 20 bucks a month, that makes such a huge difference in reaching men and getting them out of isolation. And second is getting your hands on some of our awesome merch, like hats, t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, and of course our tribe coffee. We need everyone in this together. So if you love what Men's Alliance is doing and are seeing the positive changes it's having on your family, then today is the day to put some skin in the game and support this mission. So head to our website at men'salliancetribe.com where all your dreams come true.
It's different because we all come from different generations too. So, like Bunty said to his family or his parents, they're from a different generation, so they are going to go with what they know, basically.
Sure.
So they come
Yeah.
here that totally out of their element. They're going
Absolutely.
to
They're going to find their tribe.
find their
Yeah.
tribes, which is
Yeah.
other Indian
Yeah.
people, and even like us. It's like when you go and you were in the Air Force. I'm not sure how many people were there, but it's just like when I told you, I feel that most minorities are more aware of their surroundings than I would say white people and stuff, because you guys are majority. You guys are always there's always more of you than there is anywhere else. So
I would totally agree
so
with
when
you.
when we have see a black guy or see somebody
It's like-
that it's like
That's how I kind of met you. Are
Right.
we on mic? Are we live?
no, I was
Yeah,
just
we
saying-
are recording.
but I was
Okay.
just saying that we all get the black man nod. Just know that hey,
I see you.
I see you.
Yeah.
Like, what's going on? What's up, man? And then more than likely we're going to introduce ourselves first here, try to make friends with us because that's all we have. We're trying to figure out what's going on, and then we'll go. But if there's nobody else, then of course we would go and try to adapt to our surroundings. And I always joke with my wife, like when we were saying that he was saying he didn't want to be the only black person at an all white church, and she definitely didn't want to be the only white person at an all black church. I feel like most minorities can adapt better
Yep.
to that situation than a white person would to an all minority type of event or
Yeah.
whatever.
I think that's just because your church lasts longer.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
A country church.
And then it's funny because I found Men's Alliance first. No, well, I take that back. I did go to a sermon at the chapel like once, and the closer, shout out to Matt Brown. He invited me to service, right? And I went there. It was okay service. I've been in non-denominational Christian, contemporary type of churches where, the message is, a little different than what I perceived the message from, growing up in a all black church. It just wasn't as engaging for me. Wasn't as, even though there's a lot of entertainment going on, wasn't as entertaining as I grew up.
I still want to hear more. I'm like, go on.
So when I first went there, I was like, and he's like, yeah, what do you think? Because he's all excited, and how the closer is. He's like, hey man,
Yeah.
and I was like, it was all right.
Yeah.
He's like, coming with us, like next week, and we doing this. What we doing? I was like, I'll let you know. I gave him a nice no, but it's just something I just didn't relate with. But as like I said, as I got into Men's Alliance and got to know you guys and stuff like that, and your passion on the church and the pastor and Pastor Brandon does a great job, and it's just me being more open minded to the message, and it's just a different way of me receiving the message from God. Now he is a good pastor. It's just a different way of him explaining it than what I was used to.
Yeah.
I still, enjoy. Now I'm just a fan, just of all sermons and all different types of styles from different pastors and things like that. I can, relate, and it's all about relatability. What you might like may not be my cup of tea, but it doesn't mean that we're not getting the message. It doesn't mean it's a bad message. It's just it relates to you better than myself. So, always going in with that open mind, always going in, adapting to your surroundings. That'll, I want to say that hopefully that would break the stigma of, different races, and, racism in itself. And it is embedded in American culture. People always talk about race. They always bring it up especially when it's not even intentionally not supposed to be there, they'll bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just like having that open mind, learning how to adapt and just vibe with different people and different types of thought processes and things like that. In the upcoming, it could be 50 years from now, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, but having that open mindset as we get more people, of mixed races or just vibing together. Like he said, there's only in Richmond City, so I'm sure predominantly it was all black, and then just come to suburbs, predominantly, all white. It's just, just finding that middle ground, that balance, and being able to just vibe with one another. That's when it's gonna change. I had one of my friends. This was like several years ago. He came up to me and he was dead serious. He said, he go, Marcus. He's like, how do you talk to white people? And I was like, what? Like, what are you? I was like, what are you? He goes, yeah. He goes, I get nervous around them. I don't know like what to say or what to do. I said, just be yourself. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, I don't understand the question. Really. But a lot of people feel that way. It's like they go and they can only hang and vibe and just be themselves around one race and not the others.
Do you think that has anything to do with introversion, extroversion, or no? Because as you're saying that, I'm like, you are like
right,
very outgoing and confident.
So I'm an outgoing, confident guy, but
Yeah.
Do you think it has to do with the way they were brought up? You think
it definitely is the way they brought up. I was, like I said, I was lucky enough to be immersed in different types of backgrounds, different types of races, whether it was, just my own race, growing up, where I lived, the sports teams that I played on, the people I worked for, and just different experiences. I mean, yeah, I'm lucky enough to be a well-rounded individual to where I feel like I can, talk to anybody.
and you're in sales. So
And I'm in sales.
Yeah.
Kind of so.
There you go.
But it is a thing that you have to work on, and it's something that you have to go and ask questions and be genuinely curious about that one person. You got to find a middle ground. A lot of times, my middle ground or bridging the gap is sports.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Sports is for me the ultimate equalizer. Like I could be the poorest person on earth talking to the richest person on earth, but we both shout out to the Bills. We both like
Yeah.
Buffalo.
Right.
That's our common ground right there.
Right.
Once we get past that, I can then ask some questions. Oh, you're pretty cool. Like where'd you grow up? Or XYZ. And then you just have a conversation. get to know that person. Oh, that person is pretty cool, you know. And then it's like whatever the color you are, it just goes away. You know, it's like, oh, this Shadow he's just a good dude. Flav, he's just a good dude. You know, Triple, a good dude. Goose is a great guy.
Flav does like the Cowboys, though. So
You know,
we'll let that slide.
yeah, we know about that slide.
You're definitely right about the sports, right? Like you see a guy wearing your team's jersey, or better yet, the opposite team's jersey.
Yeah.
You're going to talk to him.
Right.
You're going to holler at him. You're going to say something if you're in a restaurant or a bar or wherever. You're going to say something.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's like the thing, right?
And I think that's the culture that Men's Alliance is creating.
Exactly.
That and that's what the Marines does so well is when you see a Marine or you know a Marine, you instantly have a connection and a bond with that guy because you know he's gone through the exact same things that you've gone through. Even if it's not the same MOS, we all go through the same exact boot camp. That's exactly this. That's structured the exact same way.
Right.
So, and that's why they say every Marine's a rifleman. So we all go through the same weapons training, all that kind of stuff to a certain point. And then when you get to your MOS, you know, things change. But especially an infantry guy, if you first you see a Marine, then he's an infantry, then you really have a connection, and you can sit down and have a beer or a cup of coffee and get to know that person because that's what bonds you. I think that's what Men's Alliance is doing really well. Is like when you see another guy, I'm starting to see guys out in town wearing Men's Alliance shirts that I don't know, you know? So it's like, you see that guy, black, white, red, yellow, it doesn't matter. It's like that dude's a Men's Alliance. We have a connection. So it's like, hey, what's your call sign?
Right.
You know, what tribe do you go to? It doesn't matter what color they are. And I think that's a great culture that we're creating where it's like race really doesn't have anything to do with it. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
You know, because we're all going through the exact same thing at a tribe meeting every week.
Can you share that story about the guy, you wearing the shirt and the connection at Gather?
Oh yeah. So I work remotely most of the time at my house, but every now and then there's this co-working space. So I'm in there, you know, in a conference room, working away. I got my Tribe Coffee shirt on, and this guy in a suit, tie walks by and is like pointing at me. And obviously my time's over in this conference room.
It's like glass wall, glass door.
And everything. And he's like pointing at me, and I was like, "Are you in this room? Like, are you supposed to be in here and everything?" And then he pointed to the sleeve, and I was like, "Oh!" And then all of a sudden I see Goose walk in and like shake hands with this guy, and ended up being Rooster, who I hadn't met yet, but it was interesting. It almost felt like a little scene out of Fight Club. Like, what happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club.
Right.
Yeah. Two total strangers in an office setting. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I like your shirt.
It was interesting. When I met Swag for the first time, he came over, gave me a high five, and you know, it's like the brother high five where you do it on the side, give a little hug. Oh, I didn't know this guy.
I'm still working on that.
Yeah.
I'm still trying to learn that.
But that's
It probably went like a month and a half. I didn't know his name or anything, but we just connected.
Right.
And it's interesting because, you know, we went back to like why my family gravitates towards their culture, why we gravitate, why you got, you know, and I think it's the shared experiences of like knowing, hey, you've probably understood some of the things that I've gone through.
Right.
So in the case of my family, they've gravitated to other people that, you know, left everything in their home country and came over here for a better life. So they know the struggles that they go through and everything. So that's kind of what brings them together in that tribe. I think what you're saying is an example of what's, you know, tribal. That's our first motto. As Men's Alliance tribesmen, we have shared experiences.
Right.
And that's what ties us together. It's not our race. It's not our, you know, funny story. Another funny story. Back in college, I went to JMU, and you know, it's predominantly white. Most of the people of color are athletes. There's like a smaller group of Indians. But I had like injured my knee. I was about to get surgery. I had missed the bus. I'm on crutches. So I called my roommate. He comes and picks me up. I'm at the bus stop. I get in the car and we start pulling off, and there's this guy walking by and nods his head at me. So I nod my head back. My roommate goes, "Do you know that guy?" I was like, "No, I think black people just think I'm black." So just
We can find them.
That's awesome.
so but I think it speaks to the whole tribal nature. Like that's the culture that we foster. And I think, you know, you were talking a little bit about the bubbles a little bit earlier, and, you know, some of what you said, I almost wonder, maybe it's upbringing, I wonder how much media plays into, like, what are you listening to? What are you watching? I think for me, I've actually cut off news for the last 2 years, and it's been a game changer for me. Now, I rely on all you guys to let me know if something's going down.
Yeah.
But what I've realized, the most important part of that is when I hear a piece of information, I can process it myself versus having somebody else tell me how I need to process it.
So
And that's been
so
such
good.
a game changer for me.
Right.
So I want to jump in really quick because kind of what Swag, Triple, and Shadow was talking about, like, I think one of the great things about just kind of going into Men's Alliance, being a patch member, like the leadership element, it just kind of like drives you to have a growth mindset. And that's kind of what you talked about too. Is like, am I going to have that victim mindset or that growth mindset? And I think the way I tend to look at race is that this is just the reality of the situation. It's got some truths, untruths. All these things are going on. Like, I got to play 3D chess. How do I move through this and how do I adapt? And I think that's very critical. Not everybody does that or, want to do that or have sometimes the ability to do that, I would say. And it comes to like your critical thinking skills and stuff like that too. I listened to mostly R&B, hip hop, all this stuff. I grew up in the Black church until I went to college. That's when I was exposed to a lot of different other things. So this is what I kind of saw. So what I wanted to say, I completely forgot my train of thought, but I just think that growth mindset, really just to be able to kind of go around different corners and stuff like that, whether something is right or wrong. Yes, I think you need to advocate for that, but you need to be able to kind of move the ball forward and adapt. And I love what you said, like when it comes to church, sales, your job, you can navigate because you're kind of forced to do that. So you kind of I see it as a superpower to say the least, but I do think like certain groups, I think this relates to every culture. Like if you're not learning, you're not educated, you're not asking questions, you're not trying to find the truth, you're believing everything that you hear in a song or in a movie, and now that becomes your reality, and now you're in a box. And then I feel like, not to get philosophical or anything like that, but I feel like there is some manipulation going on that's like people are not thinking for themselves. They're pretty much just a robot. And that just creates an issue, and people are baiting off of that. So I think it's really important to think for yourself. And for me, Men's Alliance, has helped me do that with the apologetic stuff. Like, what is truth? Making sure, like, if somebody's asking something, diversity, how are you defining diversity?
What do you mean by diversity?
What do you mean? Like, just those simple type of things, and just asking questions and just sitting back and listening to the person's logic. And I think that's just so critical. So that's all I'm going to say about that.
That's so good, man. Yeah. Well, I think over these past couple of years, so you think about George Floyd, BLM, all this really happened, was it 2020?
Yeah.
Right. And that was the same year that we launched Charlie and Delta. Right. So we went from 2 to 4 in 20. During this time frame, right? Everybody was wearing masks, churches were closed, and we're launching tribes. And there's all this racial tension. And that was kind of like the real year that we really were born, right? I think 2017, 2018, 2019, that was like warm-ups, right? And then 2020, it was like game on. Now we've got this figured out and we're launching tribes. So that was kind of like a part of the undercurrent going on. But, a lot of the key things that you just said there about people listening too much to the news, people not thinking critically, but just taking whatever they're hearing. So in that kind of context and background, I feel like I don't want to belong to a tribe based on color, right? I want to belong to a tribe based on a lot of other more important things, like predominantly Christianity, right? Like I want to be surrounded by like-minded Christian men who are trying to follow Jesus, trying to be more like Jesus, trying to be husbands and fathers that they know Jesus would be if he were them, right? And man, that's like the game changers when you start surrounding yourself with men on that mission, right? Who can ask you the hard questions and hold you accountable. that's the kind of tribe I want to be in. That's the kind of table I want to be sitting at, is the guys, like if I walk into a restaurant and there's Men's Alliance shirts and hats in that place, that's where I'm going. I'm walking over to that table, right? Couldn't care less what their races are. That's my tribe. That's MA, right? And so I think that that's a big part of it. But
I just got to say something really quick, Goose. I think that's a really good point. Like, obviously, our tribe, the focus is on Jesus, and Jesus makes a big, bold claim, like, he's the way, the truth, and the light. And I think we do a really good job in Men's Alliance of pointing people in that direction. Some people that think the truth comes from Joe Biden, Obama, whoever, Trump, or whatever. But if you're looking for the truth in those places, I don't know what's going to happen with you, but at least with Men's Alliance, like, we're focusing on Jesus. We're sharpening each other. When I joined Men's Alliance in 2020 or 2021, I can't remember.
That was in 2021.
2021.
That's when I
think it was 2020. Same time as you, Triple. I just think, like, the guys that I met in Men's Alliance, whether they was white, black, Indian, Asian, whatever, like, I developed a really close relationship with them in a month than some of my friends I've known since 8th grade. And like, you can't make that stuff up in this world. Like, that, especially guys coming together that are pouring into your life. Like when we lost the baby, coming together, cutting the grass for us. It doesn't matter their race. Like, their hearts are changed. It's directed at Jesus. It's just a different relationship. It's just something different. And when none of us are perfect, whether we're black, white, green, whatever. But if you could just show that love of Jesus and live by example, people are going to see that. And I think that's what the world is looking for, no matter what color you are. So yes, people might be looking for other truths in different areas, but as long as we continue to focus on Jesus, point people to Jesus, utilize our tactics with apologetics, and just challenge people's logical beliefs or whatever, and put those pebbles in people's shoes, I think that's the start of the fire right there. So
bam.
Yeah, that's it.
We're closing.
Yeah. To speak to that, though, one of the reasons why we bond so quickly is because anybody that you suffer with together is going to be a bonded friend for life.
Yep.
So, and that's physically and just living life together. We all suffer. When they come beside you, and it's like, yeah, same thing happened to me, or dude, I'm right here with you. I'm crying with you. Like, I feel for you. But if you really want to have friends for life, go to Men's Alliance when the weather sucks.
Right.
Best night for bonding right
you
there.
You will remember who was there for the rest of your life. So when it's cold, rainy, and it's just side rain is coming down, that's when you need to go to Men's Alliance if you really want to create a strong relationship. Because anybody that suffers together, when you suffer beside another man, you'll be bonded and friends for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you remember.
That's right. That's so good, man. I love hearing you say that, Flav. Holy cow! That you were like, I bonded more with guys in just a short period of time at Men's Alliance than guys I'd known for a long time. That's awesome.
But like to his point, he did say, he went in, and we were always saying this, a different mindset. Like, he had a grown man's mindset. You go in as a young kid. What are your character traits or personality traits that you're looking for at the time? A lot of it's, superficial, as a young kid, do we listen to the same music? Oh, we listen to the same music. Or do we do, do we, what girls we like, what car you like, it's just very superficial stuff. And it's not very deep, because you haven't lived, you haven't experienced anything. And, like to Shadow's point, suffering together, people starting, as an older person, starting to lose loved ones or going through marriages, having, unfortunate miscarriages and things like that. A lot of adversity in their lives that you feel that you're the only one that is happening to. And then you come across somebody's like, oh man, that happened to me last year. You can bond over that. And that's such a stronger, you're a stronger position, between you, and you can, build off that relationship because something terrible happened to both of y'all, and y'all can grow together. Y'all can, heal together off that. It's just, what are you looking for at that particular time? And, you know, with Men's Alliance, you know, finding that brotherhood, finding that sense of belonging, you know, where the, you know, focal point, of course, is, you know, Jesus and growing that relationship with him. And you see like-minded individuals that's going to want you to do that. Most people are going to gravitate towards that. It's not a club, you know, like he said, like Goose has said many times, it's not an exercise club.
Right.
It's not a hangout club, you know.
Right.
We're going here for a certain specific reason, getting together once a week, twice a week. Now it's, I don't know, is it 7 times a week now? You know, like you can go pretty much the whole week and get your fix, get your need, you know, get your sense of whatever that you're looking for with this group. And then, of course, the lasting relationships that come out of it, it's just icing on the cake.
That's why we do hard workouts.
Right.
Yeah.
Is because just the physical suffering.
Right.
You know, that's why they're hard. It's like we try to make them hard so that not everybody can achieve them. Do your best. I mean, never let that
Swags
make
workouts.
you stop coming. Yeah, Swags workouts. That's if you want to bond with a friend, go to Swags workouts. Yeah.
Can I say something really quick? Just a quick story that's kind of funny. And,
No, you're done.
You know, I'm gonna make it really short. I know I'm probably about to get cut off. I always get feedback with that. So I first just joined Men's Alliance. So we moved from Richmond to Chesterfield, and got a brand new house built, had a baby, all that good stuff, and I accidentally flooded the bathroom floor, our master primary bedroom, whatever you want to call it, the main bathroom, the walk-in closet, the other bathroom, completely soaked everything. I tried to get like a bunch of different towels and stuff like that to try to play it off. No, it wasn't going to work. And I was like, what am I going to do? I remember the creed, like, I don't struggle alone. I reached out to Aaron, like, I didn't even know Aaron. I'm like, can you help me out? Went to his house, got my dehumidifier, stuff like that, and like helped me out in that situation of need. I felt embarrassed. This was a big situation in our house. I thought my wife was going to kill me. At least the first time, she did not. She gave me grace, but I have ADHD.
Whoa.
So it actually was like 3 or 4 times, but that's a whole different story. But it was a great example, and I'm always going to remember that Aaron came to my rescue. Like, I didn't even know him like that. Like,
that is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, man.
And we need to clearly do like a whole podcast just dedicated to plumbing.
Yeah.
Multiple times. You know, so one of the most important things to me about race in Men's Alliance is we need to be the voice in our culture, especially amongst Christians, but really to everybody, that's uniting.
Yeah.
Right. I feel like ever since 2020, I don't know what in the world happened. I don't know what happened in the spiritual realm in 2020, but like it was like the magnetic poles switched. It was like everything went crazy, right? And the whole world just went upside down or something. And there's been so much tension ever since, right? You got the whole George Floyd, BLM, and now the whole CRT. And there's just this constant pulling is what I feel that, like, honestly, I believe just Satan is just trying to divide people.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Whether they can divide us along the lines of men, women, right? We see that whole thing going with male, female, and trans. And then, or we could get divided socioeconomically, right? This whole 1% and you know, class, and there's like this sudden like Marxist movement to get rid of billionaires. And so it's like you can get divided by gender, you can get divided by income and race, right? It's like I feel like there's concerted efforts by the enemy to divide us along any line that they can find. Like whatever the line is, you know. Oh, and sexual preference, that would be the other one, like gay, straight, black, white, male, female, rich, poor. It's like however they can get this pie sliced into as many pieces as possible to make us all different and make it everything in us, them, right? That's what I see going on. And that's where I feel like we've got to be the voice. However large Men's Alliance is, whatever size we become, we ought to be the voice, at least to Christian men in this country, saying, don't worry about any of that stuff, right? That stuff is ridiculous, right? You're stay focused on your mission, right? Like you were talking about, in the Bible, God created man, right? You're a man, you're a Christian man. This is your tribe, right? Don't let the enemy get a foothold in here to divide us all 8 different ways. That's my.
Well, it's interesting. You guys were talking about, you know, the aspects of Men's Alliance and what drew that to you, and I think that's great. But there's other groups out there that offer that too. You know, I look back to the first group I had, my college buddies. We hung out. We had a bond and everything. But as I look back in some of the, you know, personal challenges that I've dealt with, how did they react? You know, not bad. They didn't have the truth in them from that standpoint. So they're like, hey, let's go grab a beer. Let's go do whatever. And let's go get your mind off of it. Which, you know, probably helped me in that moment. But then that didn't set me up for anything on how to deal with it. And what's different from what we're doing, you know, the question that's always asked in church, the answer is always Jesus.
That's right.
It is Jesus here
Yeah.
at the end of the day, because what sets us apart is men speaking truth into your life and saying, hey, if you're struggling in your marriage, hold up the gospel to you and be like, hey, this is how you're supposed to act. This is what you're called to do. Doesn't matter what else is going on. What are you going to do? How are you going to be the best version of yourself? That's what differentiates, I think, Men's Alliance from everything else. Into what you're kind of just saying is like, hey, we're called to be different.
Yeah, man, that's so good.
Yeah,
Yep, absolutely.
Well, guys, as we wrap this up, any closing thoughts? Any last things that need to get said that haven't?
Why are you looking over here, Triple?
I don't know. You don't have to. I mean, you guys said everything. I feel like there was about 5 mic drops during this anyway, but I think this has been awesome.
Yeah,
this has
it
been,
sounds like a part 1 of a series.
Yeah.
It's definitely good.
You know,
part 2, part
I'll
3.
I'll share this funny story from this week. So I was just mentally thinking through this podcast the other day while I was driving, and I was driving my daughter home. We were downtown at the Children's Pavilion, and so I have 2 Chinese daughters. And Mia, we adopted her when she was 13, and she's 17 now. So she did not grow up in America, and she carries none of the baggage of being an American that we all have, like, culturally. You know, we have like all these cultural references, and when we talk about race as an American, you think of like 1800s and slavery and stuff, and like they don't have that, right? And so I had to explain what racism is to a 17-year-old Chinese girl. And I was trying to explain the words stereotype. And so I was explaining to her the stereotype that exists in this country about Chinese people. And she got such a kick out of it. I was like, let me tell you, because she was like, what is it? And I was like, well, I'll explain it to you. I was like, we think that you're all really good at math. And she just died laughing, right? And so it led to this great conversation. She is great at math. She's great at math because she studies math all the time, right? Like my other kids are like playing games, and she's sitting over there studying math. And funny example, like this was a couple years ago. I think she had been in America for like maybe 2 years, and we were driving home, and I just thought I would test her. And I'm not good at math, okay? So like I can't make up just anything to test somebody. I can only ask them something specific that I happen to know. So I was like, hey, Mia, if you're in a vehicle that's going 420 miles per hour, how many miles per minute is it traveling? 7. That's how fast she did that. Yeah. And then I'm dying laughing, and she was like, why? And I said, because anybody else I would have asked that to would have needed pencil and paper and 5 minutes. And then it come with, and she just popped it out, right? And so it was fun explaining to her stereotypes and explaining racism, explaining what this is to somebody that has none of this baggage. She was just like, that's interesting. That's weird, right? And I hope that you know, what we're doing is we're creating a stereotype for Men's Alliance, for tribesmen, right? You think about that. Everybody's got a stereotype. There's stereotypes for blacks, for Indians, for white guys. There's a million stereotypes for rednecks, right? You know, and so I'm from North Carolina and hunt deer, so everybody's got their stereotype. And I think it would be cool if when we get to the point where there's a stereotype for a tribesman, right? And hopefully it'll be a positive.
Yeah. There's not yet, because you could think that somebody would be super into Men's Alliance that you didn't like give them a car to, and they're like, no, that's not for me.
Oh, right. It certainly won't be anything based on physical appearance.
No, right.
That's true. That's true.
No.
You know, hopefully it'll be the stereotype.
Like MA, and it's like, no.
Yeah, the stereotype hopefully will be that we'll be the guys that show up at your house when it's flooded.
Right.
Or when you're going through a tragedy, or whatever the case. I want that to be the stereotype.
Right.
All right. You guys had your chance for last shots.
Yeah,
We good? All right.
Well, I'll just say one
All
thing. Like, if we're going back, and this is just diversity in general. Next time you're trying to recruit somebody to Men's Alliance, recruit somebody that doesn't look like you. You know, just go have that conversation. Like I was saying earlier, have that conversation with somebody that you know, and most of the time it's a different color than you. Try to get them in there, and that will lead to conversations. That'll lead to that particular person feeling more comfortable, more inviting, and then let's see what happens and see if we can grow it that way.
And if you need to know how to talk to white people, Swag will help you.
There you go. That's crazy.
Man, I'm so glad you said that. And that opens up another little thing, right? I think that this goes back to what do you mean by diversity?
Yeah.
Right. I think we need to be, and we are pretty diverse when it comes to age, right? Like, don't just invite guys that are 30 and 40.
Invite your buddies,
right? Invite the 17-year-old, invite the 70-year-old, right? So, you know, you can have a whole room full of white guys, and that room can be extremely diverse,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
right? That could be extremely diverse. They could be from different countries, different socioeconomic, different ages, you know, and the same thing is true for black guys, right? One from East Coast, one from West Coast, one that's 70, one that's 20, right? One who's an attorney, one who's a farmer, right? So I think we can think of diversity in terms of other than color, right? And I'll add to your comment about who you invite. We need to continue to invite guys who might be in a wheelchair, or on crutches too, right? So we can be diverse with color, with age, and with physical ability too, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to diversity, one thing to keep in mind too, just a lead-in principle, like Spur talked about it at Delta a couple weeks ago, but don't give the enemy a seat at your table. Jesus is there. He prepares a table for you. Psalm 23. I think we all have an opportunity just to ask the Holy Spirit, where are those blind spots in our life? And just get healing, get freedom in that area. And I think we need to encourage everybody. It's just not like Men's Alliance. It's each organization. Make sure that we're putting God first and that we are truly loving our neighbors. And our neighbors come in different forms, shapes and sizes, colors. And we can all do a better job. It's going to look a little different for everybody else. You might want to go to a different church. You might want to serve together. You want to create those different environments so you can at least, like Men's Alliance, at least allow the conversation to start. So anything you can do in that area will be helpful.
That's awesome. Great stuff. All right, guys. Well, hey, thank you for taking your time. Thanks for sharing this. I hope it is a part one. Maybe we do a part two and
fun.
And get all different kinds of guys in here. Maybe we'll get some old guys and some young guys and just talk about diversity from those perspectives as well. But you know, I love how this conversation went. I had no idea how this conversation was going to go. I didn't know what direction.
We didn't have any thought out questions.
Yeah, and I just really enjoy this because I want to always use our podcast to address important issues, right? Whatever's important, we need to talk about it. Whatever that may be, we're going to address it on the Men's Alliance podcast.
No matter how uncomfortable it may be.
That's right.
Not that this was uncomfortable, but
Right. So awesome. Look forward to seeing you guys around the fire. Thanks for listening to the Men's Alliance podcast. We hope to see you in one of our tribes or at one of our unforgettable weekend experiences. So join us at men'salliancetribe.com.